Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Neal Oates Jr., Robin Lewis. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing great, Neal. Good to be here with you as usual.
It is good. It is great to be here. And here's why. We are releasing this episode halfway through the last month of 2025.
Wow.
And so, Robin, so much has happened in a calendar year. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. It's like, where did the year go, actually?
So on that thought right there, ladies and gentlemen, where did the year go? Robin and I thought that we're not the only ones who probably feel that way. We aren't the only ones who probably feel like, I think I was successful, but I'm not totally sure. Where am I? How do I finish these last 2 weeks of the year on a high note to build momentum for 2026? So what we've decided to do is to share some our processes, some of our systems and methods for how we review the year and how we plan for the upcoming year, because there are two things that we know. The first one is that experiences not reviewed or not reflected on, they are wasted, right? We don't really get the full impact or maximize the outcome. That's the one thing we know. So if we don't take time to review and reflect, we don't get the maximum outcome that we can. And the second is, if we don't plan for the future, we do not get everything we can out of the life that's ahead of us. So Robin, I'm excited for us to share this, because we're going to have really 2, possibly 3 or 4 different viewpoints coming about how to review, how to reflect, how do we track, and how do we plan. Because as much as we are alike, we do have some different nuances in our processes and procedures. So I can't wait to see where this episode goes, sir.
Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined. They're built, brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neal Oates Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neal and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The Big Life starts now.
Yeah, I agree. And I so love the fact that you bring that out from the onset, because folks, what we're going to share with you today is coming from Neal and Robin, and maybe, what we've learned. I've learned some of these a sort of a ritual that I do now each year at the end of the year. But my point in saying that to you is that you might have your own. The point is actually doing it. What we're suggesting to you, what Neal just said, I want to reiterate, because I can tell you, I first heard the concept a few years back, and then I started doing it. And those 2 things I'll share with you there. Number one is I got better at it each year. And so if you haven't done what we're sharing with you today, this is going to be the first year that you're going to jump in, don't feel like you're going to have it all together. You don't need to. Taking the step to review your year is going to put you ahead for 2026, period. You can trust me on that. And what I look forward to doing this every year now is because of what I take from it. That the truth is, if I don't take the time to review and reflect on it, then it won't get the most from it. That's the reality. And so what we're talking about here might sound like, well, I'm looking back. I want to look forward. When what we are saying is that in order to look forward, you need to look back. And we have the opportunity to do that with new beginnings. And the year end and the new year give us the opportunity to do that. So we were going to share with you some thoughts around that we believe that you can really springboard into 2026 if you take the time to do some of these things.
So Robin, let's jump off right there, because this is where we're going to start with Robin and our difference first. So one of the big differences is the time of the year that we do our reflection.
Yeah.
So let's start with you. When are you doing your reflection? Because we mentioned that we are halfway through the end of December. So today is December 16th when this is released. And so our listeners, our audience might be hearing this and they might think it's too late for them to reflect, right? So December 16th, when do you do your yearly reflection, Rob?
Yeah, so I kind of get ready. Like I'm in the process of getting ready for it now. And by getting ready, I mean I'm pulling out my journals that I've written into. I'm pulling out my calendar. And I have a place where I kind of register a sort of a summary of my days, what went well, what didn't go well. And so I'm getting those things ready now. And then I usually take the time between Christmas and New Year and I review those. So that's usually when I do it, Neal. How about you?
So for me, in my head, I'm a weirdo, right? So I do mine probably a month ahead of your schedule. So for me, the second week of November, that's when I'm doing my reflection. And before you all are like, man, Neal, why do you do it in November? The reason I do my yearly reflection the second week of November is because I really want to count my blessings and I want to know what I'm thankful for as I'm going into the Thanksgiving
I like
holiday.
it, actually.
And so, Robin, what that allows me to do is that really does allow me to go into a season of Thanksgiving with some very specific thankful ideas, right? Some things that are fresh on my mind. So maybe it's, hey, I'm thankful that I did accomplish this, or I'm thankful that I'm here another day so that I can try to finish this goal, right? That maybe I've fallen short of. So the very first thing that we see is Robin is doing his towards the end of the year. I'm doing mine at the front half of November, right? The second week in November, but there is no wrong time. What's important is that you get some reflection time in your calendar and that you do it. And as you just said, Robin, it's not going to be perfect. We don't even know what we're supposed to be doing oftentimes when we start. But that's where we want to maybe outline and show some of this. So if we could, do I have permission to ask you some of your process? Are you okay if I ask you some questions right here, Robin?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly.
Okay. So you mentioned that right now you are gathering things together, right? But I know, Robin Lewis, the man, that you have done your reflection time, quiet time throughout the weeks, months, and quarters. What does that look like now as we're coming to this time when you are compiling information and maybe benchmarks and some results from the year? What does that look like? Because many of our listeners, especially those who have not done this before, the first thing they hear is, this sounds like we're getting ready for April 15th, right? Like we're getting ready for tax season.
Yeah.
And I have to find all of my receipts. So would you just share a bit of your process so it's not so daunting for those who are like, nope, I'm going to skip this episode and I'm going to come back next week?
Yeah, it's so good. That's such a good question. And I think that's one of the things that can be sort of be daunting. And what happens is that when you actually go to do the review, you realize that there's some things that you just can't remember. You just can't remember them. You know, it's hard for us to go back and remember everything, who we saw, decisions we made, and so on, right? I mean, just think about that. You're going to try to review your, and so one of the things, Neal, that I would say I've gotten better at is documenting that. And so I try to document my day every day. So in 2025, and by the way, in getting prepared, I've already looked back and recognized that I have missed a few days here and there. So there are, I can't tell you that I've been 100% consistent with that, but I'm a lot better with that now than I was in the past. And I use an app called Evernote, and that's where I sort of document those things. I have templates that I have set up that I just kind of use a new one for each day and I complete it. And so that has in there things I accomplished, things I set out to do. All right. So I may find a few things. Here are some of the things that jump out at me as I do the review. There are some things in there that I recognize that I need to spend more time doing. I may have said or thought that I was going to do some things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back and review my year, I find out that maybe I haven't done enough of those and I need to do more of that. Or on the other hand, what might stand out to me is I might see things that I'm doing too much of that are not putting me in the right direction as far as where I need to go. So as I gather, for me, to answer your question practically, I have my Evernote, I have my calendar, because I wish where I would like to get to, Neil, is have it in the same place.
Yeah.
So to have this template in my calendar that I can just go to my calendar and have all of it there. I'm not there yet. And so I have two places like that that I look at. And then the other thing that I do as I gather to get ready for this is I journal. And so I also pull my journals, and I also want to kind of look through those because that's very revealing, as and so I pull my journals also, and I bring all of that together, and then I try to review them from January 2025, all the way up through the end of the year. So that's kind of what I do.
That's fantastic stuff. So I love it. And so I am much like you, sir. So, we've got the journal here, probably go through, depending on what type of year it is. I might go through a journal, might go through a journal and a half. It all depends on what type of year it is. And then for me, something like I am a visual person. Some people might say lazy. I'm going to say visual. So what I do, one of the things that has really helped me in the past couple of years, especially with wife, she loves taking photos, right? She just loves like she likes to document everything through photos and videos.
I like
So
that.
I have gotten very good at taking photos and just uploading them into our OneDrive folder. And here's what I love about that is because every quarter, every month, every week, it will give me a recap of your week in review or your year in review. So
I
now
love
I
it.
can go into OneDrive and it's going to show me visually in a matter of minutes where I can come and say, well, let me see what did my January 2025 look like. And for me, I'm a visual person, but I don't remember a lot until I see it, right? And so now I will go in and say, oh, this is when Robin and I were together at this, or Jerome and I, we did this thing in here, and now it's bringing those visual cues back to me. So that's a big part of my review. So when I'm before Thanksgiving, and here's what I really love about that, Robin, is that now it allows me to share those visual memories with people throughout the Thanksgiving holiday, right? And I could say, do you remember when we went and played golf at this time and it was raining like crazy and we should have left, but since there was no lightning, we decided to finish. And it was, you had the best shot of your life. Here's the video of that shot, right? And so things like that have helped me. But then you mentioned how you use Evernote. Robin, I swear I might be 40 years older than you because when it comes to business, I still keep my daily activity record sheets here in my binder. So I am going back through quarterly and then say, okay, well, what was my daily activity records for this quarter? I'm looking at my calls, my number of emails, my listing agreements or marketing agreements and buyer agreements signed for business, right? What's my pending closed? How many did I do for the year? Did I hit my goals or not? Because we know, as Jim Rohn said, put the number in the box and we can figure out the story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm using some, like for personal or relationally, I might use photos and video. For business, I'm old school paper sitting here looking. And of course, we have other CRMs and things that I'm going to pull from the business side to review. But a lot of times I'm sitting here looking at this piece and saying, okay, personally, relationally, spiritually. Now, that leads me to the next part, Robin. As you review, many of our audience members, we're going to think, did we hit our financial goal or not? Right? Because that's just the way we're wired. We're those achievers. As we sit here at the midway point of the last month of 2025, how do you go about and assessing your relational well-being, your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being, and then even the maybe emotional or those things that aren't in a profit and loss statement? Do you assess that at the end of your year?
Yes, definitely. There's some things. And before we move on, I just want to say to our listeners, so if you haven't been documenting, you've heard Neil and I talk about how we document, so it makes it easier for us to get to this point and then review. If you haven't been doing that, it's okay. you can still go back and look at the year. I love the idea of photos. So maybe it's just looking at the photos. The photos alone tells a story of what
Yeah.
happened in that year, whatever that might look like for you. You start where you are. That's my point to you as our listener. And if you've been documenting already, you're ahead of the game. If you haven't, you still start, because you can still look back at the year and consider the things that have happened. I have some questions that I use, Neal, which will kind of answer your question. There's some questions that I ask myself, and I got these from Mark Cole, the leader of the Maxwell Leadership Organization.
Hold on, Robin. I'm glad you clarified, because you just say, I love the way how you forget the circles and the environment that you're in, right? And you say Mark Cole like it's Neal Oates, right? No, it's not. It's Mark Cole, the leader of one of the greatest leadership organizations in the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, so true.
So these questions that Robin are going to share that he uses to assess where he is, these are tried, true, great questions that have proven valuable across countries, across cultures, across every dynamic possible.
Yes, right on. So the first is, what did I accomplish? So the idea there is what worked, right? What went well? And so you're highlighting the positives so that you can build on them. So as you look at what worked, then you can also consider that maybe you need to do more of these for 2026, right? And so that's the first thing. What did you accomplish? Yeah, go ahead, Neal.
So, Robin, I want to ask you, how easy or how difficult is it for you to start there with that question? Right. So is that something that's easy for you to do, or did you have to grow into that? Because my personality is, what worked? Not much, right? Being the cynic and sort of even belittling myself. So how easy is that? Is it for you to start at that place?
It's such a good question. And I think it enforces or reinforces what Neal and I said earlier, and that is to document. The better you can document. So, Neal, what happens is, a lot of times I think I am like what you just said. I tend to think of what I didn't do more than what I did do.
Yeah.
But as I start to look at my calendar and look at my daily summarizations and so on, my journal and so on, I can see the accomplishments because they jump off the page at me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the benefits of actually doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that, because that's one that many of us as leaders, achievers, strivers for the big life, we're like, we hear you say it. We don't even answer the question for ourselves. We hear you ask yourself that question, and then we're like, well, I'm glad I don't ask myself because I didn't do much. All right, I'm going to try to sit here and contain my excitement as you go through the rest of your questions.
I love the way you jump in. So the next question that we ask is, what did I learn? And so here, you and I, like on this podcast, you can't listen to Neal and I on the Big Life podcast and not be challenged with this idea that we need to learn. And that learning is not something that just automatic. We have to be intentional about it. And so, that does take the reflection. And so we're doing the reflection on that, hopefully, on a regular basis anyway. And so a lot of this will be documented. But as we look back at the whole year, things will jump off the page at us in terms of, what did I learn? And sometimes when we reinforce that, it helps us to actually learn and move forward. Because if we had learned something, but we're not implementing it, then it's just the same as if we didn't learn it. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense to me.
I have things like that in my life, if I can be honest. And so that's another benefit of actually taking the time to review. And so you consider that question, what did I learn? And then the third question is, who did I lead? And the point here now is that in order to lead others well, I have to lead myself well first. So how did I do at leading myself well? And how did I do at leading myself? And Neal, that's where some of those things that you were asking about earlier come up. How did I do as a husband? How did I do as a father, as a grandfather now? How did I do on the pickleball court, right?
Robin, you and that pickleball court, boy, I love to hear about those stories and the experience and the growth that, for me, I did not think that environment would bring up so many life and leadership lessons as it has. So I can't wait for you to continue to get on the pickleball court so I can learn from your experience.
And the point is that, in order to really lead others, it starts with first leading myself well. How I show up has a lot to do with whether people want to listen to me, much less follow me, right? And
Yeah.
so who did I lead? And it's starting with yourself. How did you lead yourself? And a lot of things jump out at the page at you there, right? Neal, I already shared with you something before we started recording here that I need to be more intentional and more focused for 2026. No question in my mind about some things that I've wanted to accomplish that I have not accomplished in 2025. And so one of the things that I've learned is that I need to be more intentional and more focused. So that's just as an example, right? The fourth question is, what held me back? So what led you to not hit your goals or your desired outcomes, Robin? I just shared that there are some that I didn't meet. So what held me back? Why did I not accomplish them? It's one of those types of questions that we have to be honest about with ourselves. And as we review our calendar, as we review our journal and our notes, it jumps off the page at us. It's very helpful. That's why it's so helpful to do those things. If we just ask that question without having some substance behind it, it's a little bit harder for us to get to the true answer. In some cases, right? Sometimes it might be really obvious very easily without having to do that. But in some cases, we might need to be able to review that. So the question there is, what held me back?
Robin, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, as Robin asked that question, when he answers it, he is not answering it with excuses. Let's be clear. There are reasons and then there are excuses. And so the purpose for asking the question is to get to the root cause. It is not to place blame. It is not to make excuses. It's to say, okay, well, what can I be aware of that maybe I can mitigate as we go into this next year, this next season? So we want to, as leaders, as strivers, as big life pursuers, we don't want to fall into this place of victimhood. So here's what I know when Robin asks the question, what kept me? Why didn't I achieve this? It's not going to be because of the administration. It's not going to be because it rained 180 days out of the year. It's not going to be because the industry or the market, right? It's going to be some very real things. So let's make sure that we are looking at true reasons or underlying contributing or determining factors and not excuses. I just wanted to add that there, Rob.
Right on. Great ad. And so we're getting there, and I'm going to be a little bit quicker, Neal, because I want to hear some of how you process this as well. Do I still love what I do? Is question number 5. And so the idea here is passion. The point here is that don't stop loving what you do. That's the point, right? So sometimes we might need to rekindle that love. That's the point. We might need to rekindle that love. It's impossible to establish value to others if you don't love what you do. So do you still love what you do? So here you're really looking internally now to answer your question that you asked earlier. You're looking in on the inside and you're saying, do I still love? Have I lost that? And what do I need to do to get that back? That's the essence of that question. The 6th question is, am I willing to pay the price again this year? So here we're talking about the fact, Neal, you and I know this, that everything worthwhile in life is uphill.
Don't say it. Don't say it. I've been hearing it for a decade, Robin. Come on.
And it's uphill all the way, folks. It's uphill all the way. In other words, hey, listen, Neal is having fun with me with this. But the point is that there's no easy road. We have to do the work. It doesn't just magically happen. And I think when we prepare ourselves for that, we're in a better place in order to actually do it and make it happen. It doesn't seem as difficult or as hard because we're already signing up for that. We understand that that's what it's going to take. And so, but we have to ask ourselves that question though, is that, am I willing to pay the price again this year? All right. The next one is, what are my final 4? And what we're talking about here is, what are your 4 big goals. And so the suggestion is to not have more than 4 big goals. It's kind of hard for you to really manage more than 4 big goals. And so what are your goals? So you're now looking at 2026, and based upon your review, based upon your goal, your target, your purpose, your vision, you're going to determine what your 4 goals are for 2026. Number 8, and we only have 9, so I'm almost there, folks. Number 8 is, what habit change will aid me the most? What habit change will aid me the most? And those types of things, as you review and you have your stuff in front of you, and if you don't, you can look and see what habits that I need to do in order to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. And if I'm not doing those habits now, then I need to make sure that I do those enough for them to become habits. So what habit change? If you don't change some habits this year, here's a point, you're going to get the same results as last year. Right? Yep. So if you don't change some habits for 2026, you're going to get the same results in 2026 that you got in 2025. The point there is that it's our habits that actually create the results that we want in our lives. And you can't change what you haven't identified. And so that's what you're doing there. You're identifying the habits that are needed to create the results that you want in your life. And this last one is, what is the word that will help you to crystallize and help you to focus? And Neal, this one is a little bit from a spiritual vantage point. This is one that I believe my word this year for 2025, for example, was Joshua. And it's Joshua in the Bible. And the idea behind it was the year for Robin to be bold and courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Bold and courageous. The point is to choose a word that will crystallize, that will sort of represent what you need to focus on for 2026. And this is one that I prayerfully consider. I actually ask God to guide me, to give me that word that I should have and use. And so that word is something that I will take and then really try and study that word, and then try to review and read on that word and learn on that word, and then try to keep my focus in making sure that I'm living up to whatever that word is. So in this case, being bold and courageous this year, not waiting. I have a tendency over time, over the years, to wait. Sometimes that's one of the things that actually get on my wife's nerve. My brother here, Neal, anytime he hears me say something, he always says, "Okay, Rob." He gets out his book and he says, "Okay, Rob, when are you gonna do that? And what is it exactly that you're gonna do?" And the point is that I have the tendency, and so that was a good word for me this year. I had to be very intentional about trying to be more bold and courageous and take steps and do things that are uncomfortable. I'm going to review how I did there. I think without doing the actual looking back at things, I think I've done better this year than I did previously, right? In that regard. And so what's a word that will help to crystallize what you need to focus on next year? So those are the questions that I kind of review, Neal. Thank you for listening to that. I know that was long-winded. So please, sir, share. I hope I haven't stole the time from
No,
you.
so here's the beauty. You didn't steal anything, because with the exception of the last one, number 9, right, the word, we have the same process, ladies and gentlemen. And so this is so I am a success thief. When I see something that works, I am not so egotistical that I need to put my own stamp on things. I just take what has worked, and with permission, I just go ahead and say, "Hey, I'm going to copy that." And so you know how they say success leaves clues. So the same process that you go through, I'm doing it. It's just that I'm doing it maybe a month earlier. And so now as I go through that, I'm confident. And that's why this between Robin and myself, why it works so well, because now we know what to expect and we know how to hold each other accountable. I know the questions to ask Robin in the second quarter based on how he reviews and based on how he sets his goals. So that's where I want to just transition quickly, Robin, into we've looked back. Now, how do we look ahead at the excitement of 2026? Because some of our brothers and sisters here, they're saying, well, when I review is failure, 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 failure. So why should I be excited about January 1st? Another year of broken promises and failed New Year's resolutions. So I am going to just share a resource that I have been using for the past 8 years. And you can't really see it, but it is Living Your Best Year Ever. This is a journal from Darren Hardy. And so I don't get anything from promoting this or just sharing it, but I believe for me, Living Your Best Year Ever, a proven strategy, a proven system for achieving big goals, or I'm going to say for achieving the big life. It's just something that has really helped me because it allows me to set my 3 big goals. So we're not even going with the big 4, Robin. We're going to keep it really simple because, as you said, if we have more than 4, it's going to be really impossible to focus. And so for me, when you talk about the word, my goal is a focus. So I don't choose a word to focus on for the next year or to concentrate on. I say, well, what's going to be my primary focus? What's going to be my, I'm going to say, lighthouse that's going to get all of my attention for that year? And so my Living Your Best Year Ever journal workbook helps me with that. But then it's going to walk me through the same discovery process that you do. What are the habits? What are the environments? What are some of the practices that I need to start, that I need to stop, right? Maybe it served me before, but it's not serving me now. And so for a system, this is what I use. And it has really allowed me to measure my progress on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And then if I need to course correct, Robin, I'm not waiting until the last 2 weeks of the year to make a year's worth of progress, right? I can come in and say, it doesn't look like I'm on the right path. I need to turn. If I'm going to California, I need to turn around now. Don't wait until I hit the Canadian border in Michigan to say, oh, I thought I was going west. No, it's better that I find out when I get to Tennessee that I need to make a left turn somewhere, right? As opposed to going all the way up to the Canadian border. And so that's what my system allows me to do. And so I'm looking at it, as I said, at the beginning of or second week in November. But here's why I do it at that time, not only for the reflection, Robin, but I also want to get a head start on life. I want to get a head start on my colleagues, my competition. I want to get a head start on my goals. So I treat December 1st like it's the first day of my new year, right? It's just one of these psychological switches for me. I know when December 1st comes, I am going to be in a position to go ahead and get my January 1 before January begins. So if I can accelerate my results based on my activities, 30 days, I roll into the new year when others are making resolutions or hopes and dreams. I'm sitting there living on day 1 with 30 days of proof and activity and exercise and action where I've executed. But that only becomes possible because I've had a plan. I've done the hard but necessary work of doing the planning part. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's what's necessary. Here's what Robin and I want you to grab hold of. It is absolutely vital for you to live the big life. You must reflect. You might not document everything, but you must look backwards and you must create a plan for moving forward. Robin, go ahead, sir.
I love that. I love the idea of moving forward because it's one of the things that, when we do this, now this is behind us and we're moving forward. And so the idea is today matters, right? And so I think it's so important for you to say that. The other thing I loved about what you said, Neil, is the idea of regularly reviewing, like weekly, monthly, quarterly, 6 months. So you're already reviewing, as you come into the end of the year. I wanted to ask you, because I love that. I think you've shared some of those sheets with me, right? Am I right? Those sheets that you've shared come from that come from that system?
You are 100% correct, Robin. So
I
my
like it.
planning and then my results pages. And so here's what I love on a daily basis. So at the end of every week on Saturday night, I plan my next week. So I have a planning side that talks about my big goals for the quarter and the month. And then it has my big 3 activities for the week, right? And so what are my big 3 activities for the week? And then on each week, it has 3 showtime events. And a showtime event is, these are the 3 biggest levers that will move the needle to accomplishing my big goals for the week, for the month, and for the quarter. Many times this is where I might only do 3 things in a week that's going to get all of my focus, right? Because these are going to be, if it's going to be a meeting, maybe it's going to be a consultation that I have, or it might be me presenting on stage. It could be a phone call, or it might be a date night with my wife. That's my showtime event. What's going to be the 3 things that if I put all of my energy into those 3 buckets, those 3 activities are going to have the greatest impact on my week? Because what I know is if I win 3 weeks out of every month, I'm going to win the month. If I can win 8 months out of the year, I'm going to win the year. And then on the other side, so I have the planning side, but then I have the execution side right here. And the execution side tells me, did I do those activities that I'm supposed to do? And then Robin's favorite dirty word, review. And so now I come in and I put what my wins were, what my losses, what do I fix, and then what were the lessons that I learned. And I close every week by answering the question, what am I grateful for this week? And so this is how we do this on a weekly basis, and then only to get to the end of the quarter and have to do a quarterly review. And so we have a monthly review, then we have a quarterly review. And so for me, the system really works, and it allows me, Robin, to come back and say, I do believe that I can accomplish this big, hairy, audacious goal simply because we've broken it down into very simple, executionable items. But here's the best part of this. And you mentioned that I send you, like, for someone who hasn't gone through the workbook or the process himself, you're familiar with it. Why? Because you are my success partner. It will be easier to win your 2026, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a success partner. You might call it an accountability partner. What I've learned is that no one likes being held accountable, right? However, accountability is needed for success. So I call it a success partner. It's just a little bit sexier, right? So if you have a success partner who will understand whatever your process is, for them to understand what your goals are. And if you will give your success partner permission to lovingly challenge and to hold you accountable and to celebrate your victories and successes when you don't think they're that great because they're stuck in the weeds, I know that what you're going to experience, the wins, the victories, the course correcting is going to be so much more beneficial if you have someone walk along your new year with you.
Right on. I love that, sir. Thank you for sharing. I have a quick question for you. Does that the whole year fit in that?
Yes, sir. So I will tell you the entire year fits in here, but here is the frustrating part. The frustrating part is that you're going to have to get through 65 pages of the book before you even start working on your year. And here's why. Because first, we've got to figure out, what do you really want out of life? We've got to do that hard work saying, okay, it's easy for you to have resolution, a goal for the year, but you have not reflected. Like, it starts very early in the book asking you, what are you grateful for the past year? What are you grateful for in your life? What are some of the challenges? So everything that you ask here is going to be actually in the book, and then it goes into this grand design. So it will get you through your 12 months. If you start on December 31st, you will not be ready to start implementing this for probably another 15 to 20 days, because you're going to have to do that soul searching work of looking in the rearview mirror, and it might not be for a 12-month mirror. It might be we have to go back 2 decades. You might have to go through and say, well, what do you really value? Do you have that core value? And so even as a student of success and a student of growth, the first time I went through this about 8 years ago, I had to go back and unearth some things, some old mindset, some old identities that I hadn't let go of. And so I thought, yes, I'm ready to live my best year ever. And it took me about a month to even realize what it is that I wanted out of my next year, Rob.
Sir, I love it. And it's a great tool then. Can our listeners go and buy that
Oh,
system?
absolutely. So they can go to darrenhardy.com. I am going to have a link in the show notes for this. Now, once again, Robin and I, we are not affiliated with Darren Hardy. This is just a tool that I have used for almost a decade. And when people ask me, what is part of my foundation for the success that I'm having, I always mention this. And the reason I mention it is because it has been pivotal in my rise, in my success. And I just believe in giving credit where credit is due. And so a lot of times, now I will say this, Robin, the tool itself is not going to make your year the best year ever. If you do the work that's in the book, you will continue to have 1 year better than the year before, better than the year before. But you're going to have to do the work. You have to be honest. And if you have no ego, and if you're willing to do the work and share your progress and your hiccups with a success partner, you're going to be destined for great things, greater things ahead than you've ever experienced before.
Right on. So, sir, I think we added value, great value to our listeners again today. One thing I would say to you, podcast family, is Neal, if you just caught that, he's been doing this for 8 years now. So, and he's good at it. And if you're just starting this, you're not going to be as good at it at the start. But I just want to encourage you to start, because if you start, you're going to be a whole lot better than what you were before you started. And so I don't let this be daunting to you if that's you. We all were there. We all didn't do this until we started doing it. And so be encouraged that the key there is to start it. You know, we're here. Neal and I decided we got to do this before the end of the year. We're giving you a couple of weeks before the end of the year that you can do some version of this. We're encouraging you to take the time and review your year, reflect, pull from it. If there's just one or two things that you pull from it by doing that process, you're going to be ahead of the game for 2026. And so, Neal, I think we did an awesome job adding value to our listeners today, sir. This is something that they can take. It's made me better. It's made you better. Whoever has done this process have become better people because of it. So that's our challenge and our encouragement to you, our listeners today.
And so the last thing that I want to add, Robin, is, ladies and gentlemen, don't get caught up in the hype of the New Year's resolution or the pressure to say something without first counting the cost. So in one of my conversations that I have with people when it comes to them setting their goals, I take a quote from my favorite book, and it's one of my favorite quotes. And it says, for which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost to see whether or not you have enough to finish it, right? And so that is coming from the Bible. And so don't get caught in making a promise or a vow that you have not considered whether you have what it takes to finish it. If it's not a deep-seated, real focus of yours as we go into the new year. And really the only way that you can honestly commit to something is by reflecting and knowing what your values are, doing the scary but necessary work of reflecting, of reviewing on your year, on your life, and then building a solid foundation. And what I found is that more times than not, a key piece of that foundation is going to be the influences, the environment, and the voices that are speaking into your life. So Robin and I, we thank you for allowing us to be two of those voices. And we just ask that if there's anything that we can do for you in the process, don't hesitate to reach out. Our contact info is in the show notes. There are ways that you can get in contact with us. If you like, comment, we're going to see, read, and respond to all of those. Robin, anything you have before we leave the people to go and do the necessary work of reviewing and planning the rest of 2025 as we go into 2026, sir?
Yes, just to let you know, our listeners, we're proud of you. We believe in you. And you've come a long way. And I hope as you do your review, you're going to see the good and maybe what the bad too, right? I'm sure we all have both of those in our lives, the areas that we've really excelled in and the areas that maybe we didn't follow through like we could have and should have. And that's one of the points of doing this. But we believe in you and we're glad that you're on this journey. God bless you and we love you.
And
And Neil, I don't want to take away from the way we close it out anyways.
so here's what I want to do. We know this is the 16th, but we
Yeah.
want to tell you all Merry Christmas. We don't know if you're going to be traveling. Safe travels. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. All of that. Don't forget the reason for the season. Robin and I want to make sure that we remind you of that. And as we talk about planning the next year and reflecting on 2025, don't forget to take a moment to be grateful for where we are. Thanksgiving has passed, but this time of year, let's not take for granted that we have this joy, this beauty of this thing called life, because we have a heavenly Father who loved us and made the ultimate sacrifice. We often think of that upon the death of Jesus Christ, but that doesn't happen unless he has submitted to his Father's will and has come here to earth and put that flesh on to be born. And so if you don't believe, that's okay with us for now. Just keep doing what you're doing. We know that you'll be met with what you need to be met with in due season. So we want to remind you, happy holiday, Merry Christmas. But most importantly, we want to say that we love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time we see you or you see us, we're right there with you. Peace.
Peace.